Sayadaw has been explaining that among the Samatha jhana and Vipassana jhana, Sayadaw has been explaining Samatha jhana briefly for about 2-3 days. Metta and Karuna, loving kindness and compassion, can keep the friendship smooth when dealing among each other. When dealing among each other, Metta and Karuna make it smooth. And there is also the way of practicing Metta and Karuna in order to develop jhana absorption. Metta and Karuna can be developed ordinarily in order to develop wholesomeness. And Metta is the opposite of dosa, and Metta is the adosa mental factor. If there is dosa, there is hatred, grudge, aversion. When one wants the welfare and benefit of others, the mind is free from hatred, the mind is free from dosa. When the person is free from hatred, then the relationship between people will be smooth. The relationship between family members, relatives, friends, and colleagues will be smooth. Having Metta, the other wholesome mental factors automatically follow. It is very important to have true Metta. Having true Metta, one removes hatred. Having Karuna, compassion, one removes cruelty. Metta is not the mental factor, but Metta is the adosa mental factor. Metta is not the actual name, but adosa is the actual mental factor that is called Metta. And later on, Sayadaw will explain Brahma Vihara, the 4 kinds of abode. Samatha is the practice in order to keep the mind calm, removing the nivarana hindrances. When developing Metta, one repeatedly take the being as the object, wanting them to have welfare and benefit, and one contemplates Metta repeatedly. When practicing Metta, there needs to be aiming the jhanic factor. The jhanic factor called Vitakka, aiming the mind onto the object so that the mind does not go elsewhere. And there should be effort so that the mind will reach the object. So in this way, one should apply Vitakka, aiming the mind onto the being where Metta is radiated, and also the mind should rub against the object so that the contemplation of Metta will be effective. So by applying, aiming, putting effort the mind reaches the object, the mind hits the target. In this way, one needs to apply vitakka, aiming, directing the mind onto the object, and also the mind should rub against the object. These are the two of the jhanic factors. Paccānika dhamme sametiti samatho, meaning that samatha practice is the practice that calms and suppresses the opposite mental states. Paccānika dhamma are the opposite mental states, the nirvana hindrances, which are opposite of jhana. Calming, suppressing the nirvana hindrances, it is called samatha. Saraji gives an example of playing marbles. When playing marbles, one needs to aim the marble towards the target, and one should put effort so that the marble will reach the target. When throwing the marble with aim and effort, when the marble hits the target, the player becomes happy, and then the mind becomes happy and collected.
Joy, joy.
And when the player marble hits the target, the player feels joy, happy, and the mind becomes calm, collected. So there is ekaggata, one-pointedness of the mind. In the practice, there involves 5 of the jhanic factors: vitakka, initial application, aiming, directing the mind onto the object; vichara, sustained application, the mind rubbing against the object; piti, joy; sukha, happiness; and ekaggata, one-pointedness. So in the practice, there involves 5 of these jhanic factors. And when one develops the first jhana, there will be all 5 of these jhana factors present. Today, Saraji will start to explain about Vipassana jhana from both theoretical and practical aspects. Vipassana jhana is made up of 2 words, Vipassana and jhana. Vipassana is the knowledge, discerning, sabhava lakkhana, unique individual characteristic, and samanya lakkhana, common characteristic, distinctly that of the nama and rupa. The jhana, observing closely, that is connected with vipassana, is called Vipassana jhana. In order that the noting mind should be direct or face-to-face with the object, there needs to be aiming. One should aim one's noting mind onto the object so that the noting mind will be direct or face-to-face with the object. And also, the noting should be effective. Vichara, sustained application, is needed so that the noting should be effective. Applying these 2 factors, vitakka and vichara, the other 3 jhanic factors, piti, sukha, and ekaggata, joy, happiness, and one-pointedness, will arise automatically. One does not need to practice these 3 jhanic factors deliberately, but by applying vitakka and vichara, initial application, aiming the mind onto the object, Vichara, sustained application, the mind rubbing, stroking against the object. Applying these 2 factors, the other 3 factors will arise automatically. Vipassana arises by being mindful of the nama rupa that really exist in the way they are. And Buddha described in a short sentence, Bhuta, Bhutato, Passati, meaning observing the nama rupa that really exist in the way they really are. To explain what is Bhuta, it is defined as Bhutanti Khanda Pancaka, meaning the 5 aggregates are called Bhuta. In other words, the 5 aggregates of Nama Rupa are called Bhuta. In the whole body, there are materiality arising as hardness, softness, moisture, cohesion, fluidity, stickiness, congealing, heaviness, warmth, heat, cold, stiffness, tension, movement. All these are rupa, materiality, and materiality does not cognize the object. Based on the materiality, there arises seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and knowing. Seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and knowing are the consciousness which are called nama. So these nama rupa are called Bhuta. Nama has the ability to cognize the object, whereas rupa, materiality, does not cognize the object. All these nama rupa are called Bhuta. These nama rupa are not causeless. The 5 aggregates, in other words, the nama rupa, are called Bhuta. So there is the reason why the 5 aggregates and the nama 5 aggregates, in other words, the nama rupa, are called Bhuta. The first one is Jathasakam Pachiyehi Jatata. Because these nama rupa arise due to their relevant cause, these nama rupa are called Bhuta. Sayadaw gives the example of hearing. When Sayadaw gives the talk, the voice go into the ear as sound waves. So when the sound waves strike the ear, there is the hearing consciousness. Only if one has ears, one will hear. Even though there are sound waves, but if the person is short of hearing, hearing consciousness will not take place. And if there are no sound waves, hearing will not take place. In this way, because there are the ears and the sound waves, hearing takes place. Hearing consciousness is nama, mentality, which is the effect. The ears and the sound waves are the cause, which are materiality. Because the sound waves strike the ear, hearing consciousness takes place. So this is an example how the nama rupa arise as cause and effect. Because there is the object, the consciousness takes place. So in order to use the Bidama word, because there is the aramana, because there are objects, the aramanika, the consciousness take place. To explain it in the practice, because there is the rising and falling of the abdomen, by being mindful of the rising and falling of the abdomen, the noting mind that knows the rising and falling take place. If rising of the abdomen does not occur, then the noting mind knowing the rising will not take place. If falling of the abdomen does not occur, then the noting mind that knows the falling will not take place. In this way, because there is object, the noting mind that knows the object take place. The object is the cause, the noting mind is the effect. So the nama rupa are arising as cause and effect. Rising, falling is connected with breathing in and breathing out. If there is no inhaling, exhaling, if there is no breathing in, breathing out, rising, falling of the abdomen does not take place. Because there is breathing in and breathing out, rising, falling take place, manifesting as stiffness, tension, movement, relaxation. Rising, falling also arise as the effect. Any being that has lungs will have to breathe. If someone is holding the breath, then one becomes uncomfortable, out of breath, and the person wants to breathe in. Breathing takes place. And also, without breathing out, one feels discomfort, and there is the intention to breathe out, and breathing out takes place. Breathing in and breathing out also arise because of the intention. So here, the intention giving rise to breathing in and breathing out. Sitting, standing, bending, stretching, blinking, opening and closing of the eyes, all of these take place due to the intention. So without the intention, these actions such as sitting, standing, bending, stretching, blinking, opening and closing of the eyes will not take place. So that should be the cause that gives rise to effect. So one should not neglect the fact that the cause is giving rise to effect. And also there are the nama and rupa, which is the effect, having nutrition as the cause. When one is very hungry, then the stomach feels hot, and then one feels very weak. Having taken suitable food, the person feels energized and strengthened again, feeling strong. In this case, rupa, materiality, is giving rise to rupa, materiality effect. In the cold weather, the materiality arises where the skin becomes dry, crack, and the lips also become chapped. And there is also discomfort. In the hot season, also there can be exhaustion, the body becomes weak with lots of sweat. So in these cases, one can understand that the cause and effect are arising in a chain. There is a chain of cause and effect arising within oneself. In oneself, the nama rupa are arising continuously without a break. When these nama rupa are arising, unrelevant cause do not give rise to unrelevant effect. Relevant cause give rise to relevant effect. Siddhasakam pasyehi jatata. Because these nama rupa are born from the relevant causes and conditions, these nama rupa are called Bhuta. In other way, Bhuta is also called as Vipassana, as they really exist. As these Bhuta, it is called Bhuta because these nama rupa really exist. Vipassana bhutanti vocati. The nama rupa are called Bhuta because they really exist. Paramatha are the ultimate realities that can be discerned directly, and these paramatha really exist. In the example of sitting down from standing position, there is the series of intention to sit. Because there is the series of intention to sit, the actual sitting down takes place, the body becoming heavier and heavier, and sitting down takes place. So in the case of sitting down, the series of intention to sit, which is the nama, the cause, and the actual sitting down, heavier and heavier, it is the effect, which is materiality. So these nama rupa really exist, and these nama rupa can be discerned directly, and they are called Bhuta, as they can be directly discerned and experienced. In other way, Bhuta is also called as Vipassana, as they really exist. As these Bhuta, it is called Bhuta because these nama rupa really exist. Vipassana bhutanti vocati. The nama rupa are called Bhuta because they really exist. Paramatha are the ultimate realities that can be discerned directly, and these paramatha really exist. In the example of sitting down from standing position, there is the series of intention to sit. Because there is the series of intention to sit, the actual sitting down takes place, the body becoming heavier and heavier, and sitting down takes place. So in the case of sitting down, the series of intention to sit, which is the nama, the cause, and the actual sitting down, heavier and heavier, it is the effect, which is materiality. So these nama rupa really exist, and these nama rupa can be discerned directly, and they are called Bhuta, as they can be directly discerned and experienced. Sayadaw explains what it means by discerning directly. Things that have happened in the past, they arose, but they are no longer present, and thus one cannot be certain about it. And the things that arose in the past cannot be discerned directly. One can just recall it, but it will not be exact, it will not be definite or certain. The things that will arise in the future, when there are opportunity, one just foresee it as a way of planning or thinking, but it is not certain because it has not arisen yet. Vipassana are the nama-rupa that are arising freshly new at the present moment. And Buddha actually taught in order to observe what is certain, in order to discern directly. So in order to discern directly, one should observe on the object that is certain as they are arising at the present moment. The objects that are freshly new. If the person is observing objects that are not arising at the present moment, he or she will not discern anything. It will just be imaginary. It will not be true knowledge. So the things that had arisen in the past, the things that have not arisen at the moment, they are uncertain. They do not exist at the present moment. In order to gain direct knowledge, in order to discern directly, one should observe and note the nama-rupa that are arising at the present moment, the objects that are freshly new. Bhuta are the nama-rupa that are arising at the present moment. Bhuta are the nama-rupa that are freshly new, existing at the present moment. Based on the Bhuta, the objects that are arising at the present moment, by observing them, there will be direct discerning of the object. And Buddha taught to observe the object that is arising at the present moment in order to discern directly. In the sentence, Bhutam Bhutato Passati, Passati means observing, noting. It is present moment. It is not that one had looked or one will look, but it is that one should observe, look, watch at the present moment. In observing, noting the object, one should have effort. And how to notice? Bhutato. Bhutato means in the way it exists, in the way it arises. For example, when rising occurs, note it as rising and do not note it as falling. When falling of the abdomen takes place, note it as falling and not as rising. The same goes with bending. If one is bending, note it as bending. If the person is stretching, note it as stretching. If you are sitting, note it as sitting. So please note in the way it arises. And also, to explain it in a Paramatha way, if you feel hot, note it as hot. If you feel cold, note it as cold. If it is hard, note it as hard. If it is damp, note it as damp. If it is cohesion, note it as cohesion. If it is congealing, note it as congealing. If it is hot, note it as hot. If it is warm, note it as warm. So note in the way it is. If it is stiff, note it as stiff. If it is tense, note it as tense. If it is moving, note it as moving. Bhuta Passati, one should observe the Nama Rupa in the way they arise or in the way they exist. The whole body and mind is the field of objects to be noted. The sentence Bhuta Passati covers the whole Mahasatipatthana Sutta. It explains how the object arises, how one should note and observe it. So for yogis who like brief and concise instruction, you should note Bhuta Passati. It is the most concise way of instruction for the practice. And also, when one is bending, note it as bending. When one is stretching, note it as stretching. When one is blinking, when you are blinking, note it as blinking. When you are opening the eyes, note it as opening. When you are closing the eyes, note it as closing. So in this way, one should be mindful of the object in the way it really is, in the way it really exists. It is the practice of Vipassana. When the sound waves strike the ear, hearing consciousness takes place. Note it as hearing. When the visible object strikes the eyes, seeing takes place. Note it as seeing. When the smell strikes the nose, there will be smelling. Note it as smelling. When the food is eaten, the flavor will be known. Note it as eating or tasting. When the body is touched by hardness, softness, note it as touching. So there can be stiffness, tension, hardness, softness, roughness, and know it as it is. So there are many objects to be noted. And in the mind, if thought arises, note it as thinking. When you mentally see something, note it as seeing. Bhuta Passati, one should observe the object in the way it really is. But when observing the object, one should not deliberately analyze as this is Nama, this is Rupa, this is the cause, this is the effect. Do not deliberately analyze when noting the object. Observe it as a whole. When there is seeing, just note it just as seeing. Do not analyze it as Nama or Rupa or cause or effect. Just observe it as a whole, just as seeing. So when seeing takes place, note it as seeing, aiming the mind onto the object, putting effort so that there will be sustained mindfulness. Saraji gives an example. When looking at another person, the face is the most important part one should look at. So one should not just look partially the nose or the forehead. So when one wants to look at another person, one should look at the face of the other person. and the person should be face to face with the other person and look carefully on the whole face. Looking at the whole face, at times one sees the forehead, at times one sees the cheeks, at times one sees the chin, and so on. When noting the object, one should just observe it as a whole. For example, seeing, hearing, and so on. One should not deliberately analyze as this is Dhamma, this is Rupa, this is cause, this is effect. One should not do so. But some of the yogis, they tend to analyze, they tend to conceptualize, and they think it is the knowledge. If they are conceptualizing, if they are thinking, then they will lose to note the presently arising object. So it is very important to note the object as soon as the object arises, and one should note it using common usage, common ordinary usage such as seeing, hearing. And by noting thus, one will discern distinctly, one will discern cause and effect automatically. 1 hour is up. Tomorrow, Sayadaw will explain this is the theory, this is the practice. Combining the theory and practice, this will be the result. And this will be all for today.